On today's live daily news, today San Angelo Live brings you two great interviews. One with the always beautiful Charlotte Anderson from Keep San Angelo Beautiful, and the other with the Sage of San Angelo's history, Gus Clemens. We talk about oil and Santa Rita #1. Also, some breaking news in the Tim Vasquez case. All that plus more. I'm Joe Hyde, and this is Live. Before we get to the news, San Angelo is growing and the economy is bustling. If your company is expanding here and has to house employees while you move to the city of opportunity, know this. Suburban Studios on the Concho River at 441 Rio Concho Drive just completed a multi-million-dollar renovation, making sure San Angelo Suburban Studios Hotel is here to make you and your employees stay simple and enjoyable. Their extended stay hotel meets your needs with hassle-free registration and comfortable, clean, and affordable spaces. Plus, the longer you stay, the more you'll save. Located in the Clarion Hotel, San Angelo Suburban Studios makes it easy to find a place to stay a little longer. Find San Angelo Suburban Studios and make a reservation today at choicehotels.com or on your preferred hotel booking app. Now on to the news. The U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans upheld the conviction of former San Angelo Chief of Police Timothy Ray Vasquez this week. He was charged with bribery and 3 counts of was convicted of bribery and 3 counts of honest services mail fraud. Vasquez is serving a 15.5-year sentence at the federal penitentiary in Jessup, Georgia, following his March 2022 conviction. Vasquez was found guilty of pushing for the use of Harris brand radios for the City of San Angelo's public safety radio network, influenced by bribes from Harris radio vendor Daly and Wells. These bribes, totaling $180,000 over 10 years, were masked as payments for his band, Funky Monkey. They made performances at Daly and Wells' official company events, and prosecutors demonstrated that the band was paid twice the market rate, indicating it was a bribe. The appeal contended that the payments should be seen as gratuities, not actual bribes as defined in federal statutes, due to the lack of a specified action by Vasquez in return for the payments. This argument paralleled a recent case where a similar conviction was overturned by the Fifth Circuit due to the absence of a promised quid pro quo. So they basically did not have something specific in return for the payments. That was United States versus Hamilton. However, the appeals court found Vasquez's case analogous to Whitfield versus the United States, where a judge, and this is a 2009 case, where a judge was convicted of bribery without knowing the specifics of the future cases he would be influenced in. 3 judges reviewed Vasquez's appeal. They were Jacques Wiener Jr., who was appointed by President George H.W. Bush back in 1989, Don Willett, appointed to the bench by President Donald J. Trump, and Dana Douglas, who recently joined the court when appointed by President Joe Biden. Vasquez will remain in prison. His next step is the U.S. Supreme Court. Should he not appeal there, his official release date from prison is January 9th, 2035. On that day, Vasquez will be 63 years old. Federal convicts must serve 85% of their prison sentence prior to having a chance at parole. Now into business. The popular 7-Eleven brand is fading away into DK gas stations. Delic U.S. Holding purchased the brand a while back, and stores in San Angelo are now changing over. One such store is located on Southwest across from McDonald's. While inside of the store might not change much, the outside certainly has a fresh coat of paint and new signage, and it shows the shift in branding. The store is still currently renovating, but the gas pumps are still functional. But use caution when at the location. A lot of construction going on. In crime news, a San Angelo man has been indicted after an alleged drunken shooting at an off-duty police officer. 22-year-old Rito Lozano reportedly pulled up alongside an off-duty sheriff's deputy on top of the Knickerbocker Road Dam. When Lozano pulled up in his vehicle, he offered the off-duty officer a beer and after a short time began shooting a pistol at the off-duty deputy, who also had displayed his badge and service weapon when Lozano allegedly pointed the pistol at him. Lozano ended up driving off and crashing out in Cristobal. He was arrested for aggravated assault against a public servant and evading arrest, but indicted for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. To read the story, it's a good one. Go to sanangelolive.com under the crime section. With Veterans Day this Saturday, the city of San Angelo has a number of city offices that will be closed tomorrow in observance. Those offices will include the South Side Carl Ray Johnson Rec Centers, and it's the San Angelo Animal Shelter and the San Angelo Tom Green County Health Department. That's run by the city. All the city offices should reopen at normal time on November 13th. There's no expected interruption for garbage pickup or landfill operations. It's been looming all week, and the rain and storms have finally arrived. San Angelo got hit with a small amount of rain this morning, and there should be more rain dropping on San Angelo tonight, but not until after Pflugerfest, which is starts at 5 p.m. at the Cooper's Barbecue in Cristobal. But there still remains a 70% chance of rain throughout the evening. The high this afternoon is expected to be just 52 degrees and the low dropping just a few degrees down to 46 tonight. Tomorrow things should start to dry out with the high temperature set at 59 degrees and a low of 47. Then Veterans Day, that's Saturday, is looking mostly cloudy with a high of 62 and a low of 46. Then on Sunday, the high will be 64. And the night, the rain clouds look to roll back around with a 30% chance there Sunday night. Then on to Monday. Finally, we got to get through the weather and get to sports. Ryan Chadwick made the trip out to Wall for, for two Wall athletes signing. But first, a quick word from the Bass Bunch, and we'll show you all about the Wall athletes.
You'll love this all-new 24 Ford Mustang with a 10-speed select shift transmission. That's fancy tech talk for it's a really cool car.
Right now, you can get a brand new 2024 Ford Mustang for just $33,999.
That's a great price for a sports car.
Only at Jim Bass Ford, Houston Hart at Arden Road, or shop 24/7 at jimbassford.com.
Look at you.
Two Wall Hawks took the next step in their athletic journeys today as Dylan Gidney and Ogden Hallmark signed to play baseball at the next level. Surrounded by friends, family, teachers, and coaches, the two young ball players held a small gathering in Wall's Gymnasium on Thursday afternoon to celebrate the occasion. After Wall's now retired head coach, Jason Schneer, stood up and talked about the young men for a few minutes, Gidney signed with Drury University and Hallmark with Midland College. I met with both athletes after the signing to talk about last season, the signing, and what the two expect from their final season in a Hawks uniform. Let's take a look. All right, joining me now are Dylan Gidney and Ogden Hallmark of the Wall Hawks, two members of the baseball team who signed to play at the next level. Dylan Gidney is going to play at Drury University, and Ogden Hallmark is going to play at Midland College. Guys, how are we feeling today?
We're super excited. I'm really happy for the both of us. I mean, we've been playing together since we were 7 years old, and for us to both get this opportunity, I mean, it's just super exciting.
Like he said, I'm super excited again. It's a great honor to go play the next level, and we've been playing with each other for forever, so just really exciting.
All right, Ogden, I'll go ahead and frame this next question for you. Of course, last season got right up to the precipice of the ultimate goal, right? Hawks fell a little bit short in the end. What steps are y'all taking this year to get back to that same game to actually win that state championship this time?
Really, it's just work hard every day, and then definitely keep a level head and not get too cocky or anything like that, and play how we know how to every game.
All right, and Dylan, I'll give part two to you here. I mean, most teams have to deal with some turnover, like especially if you make it all the way to the state championship, but y'all had no seniors on that team last year, so you're literally returning everyone. What do you think your chances are to find yourself in that situation again this season?
I mean, that's always the goal. I mean, I'm super excited for us and our potential because everyone's coming back, obviously, and we're only going to get better, so big expectations for sure.
All right, and let's just move into the actual playing at the next level. Dylan, why did you pick Drury University?
So I have a lot of family up there, so that was really nice too. And I really liked the atmosphere, the coaches, and everyone on the team was just a good match for me. So.
Yeah, and Ogden, why Midland College, man?
Big thing is the coaches and their coaching philosophy, and it was also really close to home, and I get to come home probably a lot more, so that definitely was a big thing.
All right, now with y'all basically signing to play baseball, Ogden, are you still going to be shooting threes in this basketball season?
I am. I definitely will. I'm not quitting that.
And what about you, Dylan? I know that you kind of took a step back from football this year to really focus on baseball. Are you going to be playing any other sports this year?
No, sir, I'm not. Just
okay.
Baseball.
Okay, so taking care of that body, making sure you're good to go by next season.
Oh, for sure.
All right, guys. Well, again, joining me, this is Dylan Gidney, who signed with Drury University, and Ogden Hallmark, who signed with Midland College. Guys, congratulations. We're all happy for you, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wall has a new skipper this year in Jeremy Gordon, but returns the entire roster from the runner-up finish a season ago. Baseball is just around the corner, and Wall should not be surprised to find themselves in the running for another state championship come spring. And of course, for more sports around the Concho Valley and beyond, be sure to check in every day at sanangelolive.com/sports.
Ew, that's so gross.
Right now, get 15% off carpet cleaning from Carpet Tech.
We are recording. 3, 2.
And welcome back to the show. Joining me today is Charlotte Anderson with Keep San Angelo Beautiful. Charlotte, thanks for being here.
It's good to be with you.
It's always good to see you because you always have some good news.
We do. We have lots of news. Lots of news.
Now, y'all had an awards ceremony thing last night.
We did. So our Keep San Angelo Beautiful, our junior KSAB ambassadors have started a youth advisory council.
Okay.
We had a fantastic event. We had students from elementary to high school that participated. We had Girl Scouts, we had the Spanish Club, we had some from Lakeview, we had students from Lee Middle School, Lincoln Middle School.
Okay.
But we just had a fantastic time. We had prizes, we had events. The kids became junior ambassadors. They took the pledge to never litter and recycle when they can't. We even had some parents taking that pledge. So that's fantastic. We're going to drag the whole community kicking and screaming, but we're going to clean up this town.
Okay. And there were some awards.
Yes, we did.
We
just came back from a conference in San Marcos, and it was the STAR Awards, the State of Texas Alliance for Recycling.
Okay.
And those awards are called TILA Awards, and the TILA Awards are for Texas Environmental Leadership Awards, and we were acknowledged, yes, for our work with our tires.
Okay.
Extraordinary recycling event, and then also for public education and outreach. We're real proud of that.
Well, the public education thing, you've been working on a book for a while.
Absolutely. So the book is in.
I'm excited about the book.
I am thrilled to death, and I know the kids are going to be excited. Actually, their teacher doesn't know, and neither does the principal.
All right, don't tell anybody.
No. It's just between you.
Just you and me.
So we'll be having a book signing party. So we're working on that now. We're trying to coordinate with SAISD. But the students that published the book, there are about 22, 23 students that wrote the poems and did the watercolor illustrations, and there's even a place in the book where they can have the autograph pages. So I'm hoping we can partner with SAISD on the books read that's December the 6th.
Okay.
And it would be wonderful if we could be a part of Fort Concho Elementary, which is where the book came from Miss Tammy Flewitt's 3rd grade class.
That is an amazing accomplishment, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I can't wait I hope you have enough copies. That's what I'm hoping.
So we have plenty of copies, and I'll make sure you get a copy.
Okay.
It's full of all of the symbols of our community, from the sheep to the river to Fort Concho. There are butterflies. There's the lily garden. There's the Cactus Hotel, and it's all about beautifying our community. And these students have done a a phenomenal job.
They really
just
have.
a phenomenal job. It's a beautiful book.
It is. It's a mind-blowing book. You'll be very proud that came from these students here in San Angelo.
Yes.
It's awesome. Just absolutely awesome. Also, Charlotte, there's the tire recycling event was moved.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
It's going to be December the 2nd. In addition to the tires, we're also going to take boxes of documents that need to be shredded.
Okay.
That will be free, and you can bring up to 4 boxes on that. So 4 boxes of documents for shredding will be free. And then, of course, on the tires, I just want to remind you that we need a car passenger tires and pickup truck tires with no rims. And we cannot take any agricultural tires or industrial tires. So we just want to make sure, these are household tires off of a household vehicle.
Right.
And if you bring tires, we have a donation of $2 per tire. So remember that, $2 per tire, please. And if you have less than 25 tires, which would represent a household quantity, then your tires are free.
Great. And that's at the Coliseum.
Yes. So December the 2nd is a Saturday at the Coliseum. That will be from 8 to 11 a.m. And as long as you're in line by 11 a.m., we will take your vehicle and get you processed through. And
now, those tires, we were talking earlier, and I was shocked. I didn't know where they went, but they go to burn it. And what do they do with them?
Right. So Reliable Tires has a facility, and it's right off the highway. It's a fantastic place. And they actually chip the tires into 1-inch squares, and then they extract the metals. And 100% of the tire is used for recycling. So the metals, they go to a steel foundry. They're turned into angle iron and rebar products.
All right.
And the tires are used for tire-derived fuel.
Tire-derived fuel. I'd never heard that term.
So the tires have so many petrochemicals in them, they burn forever, and they burn completely through. And if you want to see a real great tire fire, just log in Kuwait Tire Fires, and they have millions and millions of tires in the desert. And once they catch on fire, you can't put them out. So it shows just hundreds of millions of tires. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it's really important to get the tires out of our community, out of the landfill. We don't want any toxic chemicals leaching into our water table.
Right.
We don't want mosquitoes that can breed and pass diseases, not only to us, but to our pets. So
yeah, they are. They're an eyesore. They're a nuisance, and they're very difficult to get rid of because there's no place to recycle them. There's no place to get rid of them except for this event, which right now I think we're doing it once a year.
Right, we're doing it once a year. So far, we've collected over 20,000 tires, and we've worked on 25 different 18-wheelers. And I can tell you, I've been on every single one of them. If you're looking for a great team building activity, if you want to meet relevant community needs, we have some inspired service projects for you, and you haven't lived until you've rolled and stacked tires.
I was going to say that you're going to build some muscle there.
It is the best workout outdoors, but it is a lot of fun. The community comes together, and I can tell you, sometimes we have a lot of volunteers, and sometimes we don't. We've had people pull over in their trailers and stay and help us roll and stack.
Wow.
So at the end of the day, it turns out to be a fantastic event, and I'm telling you, the best team building on the planet. We just love it.
You're doing great work, and we're so proud of you and proud for you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's certainly a pleasure to serve the city of San Angelo and the citizens.
And so we got the tire recycling coming up in December.
Right, December the 2nd.
December 2nd. And then the book signing will come.
Yes, we'll be reading along hopefully on December 6th. And then there's a pop-up event with SAISD on the 7th. So we're going to try to get our foot in the door on that and get those kids signing and autographing those books.
There are great things to come. Charlotte, thank you for being here.
Good to be here. Thank you so much.
We'll see you again soon.
Okay.
Back to you guys.
If you're looking for a spacious SUV, this is probably a top pick. The rear spoiler and the roof rack just add to give it a sportier and more polished look. Oh, did I mention we discounted it $6,000 off MSRP?
Get a new 24 Nissan Murano Platinum and get $6,000 off MSRP. Jim Bass Nissan, Houston Hart at Arden Road, or 24/7 at bassbunch.com.
Don't you just love it?
Recording 3, 2.
Thank you, Charlotte Anderson with Keep San Angelo Beautiful and Yantis for stopping by the studio. We believe that everyone should be looking forward to the book those kids have worked so hard on. In our second interview, Gus Clemens, who we call the senior sage of San Angelo history, comes by and we drink wine and talk about Concho Country history. Let me change shirts and move to the interview room, and we'll be right back to talk about oil in the Concho Valley, the Santa Rita #1, and all that right after this.
We are recording 3, 2.
Well, welcome back to the show. I'm Joe Hyde, publisher of San Angelo Live, and we like to have interesting interviews during this segment. And today I brought probably the most interesting person in San Angelo to talk to us. We used to call him the senior sage of San Angelo politics. Now he's just the senior sage of all things San Angelo. I think it's probably the wine column that did it. But anyway, Gus has written many books. He's an accomplished writer. But the biggest thing that he did is back in the mid-'80s, he wrote this book, Concho Country. And it's about anything that's happened in San Angelo since its founding. Excuse me, I'm dropping this on the mic. Since its founding until I guess the start of the '90s is pretty much, because you have this thing. This is the third edition. You have how many editions of this book?
3, but it basically ends in the early '80s.
Okay, so this is the 100th year of the Santa Rita #1 exploding out in Reagan County, which had a lot to do with San Angelo's growth and what it looks like today. But before we get to that, because Gus Clemens on wine is the famous thing, we have to try out our wine before we begin our history lesson.
Okay. Yeah. The wine column appears in newspapers all over the United States, from Florida to California,
and these vineyards from all over the world ship you stuff, hoping that you'll tweet about it.
Correct.
Right.
I mean, literally, I have hundreds of bottles of free wine.
So
best gig I ever dreamed up.
So if you want some free wine, get the hookup with Gus Clemens. Anyway, we brought some today that looks kind of interesting. It's like,
well, I thought it's 2:30 in the afternoon when we're doing this, so that's a little bit early for a heavy-duty cab or something.
Okay.
We would preferably put together with a steak so I'll go. One thing I'll talk about, glasses. You get all kinds of different glasses for different varietals, and people say, does that make a difference? And I get free glasses too, but it does make a slight difference, but it's very slight. So if you want to buy one set of glasses and use it to drink all your wine, you can do that. And the recommendation is a relatively large...
Hold that up a little higher. Yeah.
A relatively large white wine glass. I'll hold it up both ways. You can see, compare it to Joe.
Yeah, my head, compared to my head.
This will serve, it's an excellent glass for sparkling wine. You think of sparkling wine with those flutes. That's actually not a good way to drink sparkling wine, because it looks good, but you don't get the aroma and stuff like that. So this is if you go to a professional drinking sparkling wine, they're going to drink it out of a glass like this, or one that's very similar.
So is this a very versatile glass?
It's the most versatile glass.
So you can put red wine, white wine.
Correct. Now,
port wine.
If you wanted port, you'd have a smaller glass, but it would work for everything. Mm-hmm. If you want 2 glasses, you get a bigger glass for red wine, so it'll expose.
What about these pictures I see, these women with these gigantic bowls?
Well, that's because they want to make a picture that looks fun. But
it's Instagram model
I have
stuff.
a glass that I can fill it up with a 750 milliliter bottle of wine. That's what it was built for.
I see.
I've
I
never
see.
drunk out of that glass. That glass
Maybe,
is just
maybe
there.
maybe it just looks like if you have such a big glass and just a little bit of wine, it looks like you're drinking sparingly, but you're really not. You're really drinking a quarter bottle of wine.
Well, I'm not sure anybody accuses me of drinking sparingly, but that's another story.
That's what happens when you become the senior sage of all things from San Angelo.
This is a neat bottle. If you look through this thing here, you see there's a picture of a woman behind it.
Oh yeah.
I don't think we're going to be able to. Well, it is showing up on
the monitor.
On the monitor.
Yeah.
Anyway, rosé wine.
Okay.
And rosé got a negative impression from 40, 50 years ago.
When Ernest and Julio Gallo started selling the cheap wine.
Well, there was, anyway, it was sweet and it was rosé. And
you got a headache really bad the next morning.
Well, that's because you drank too much of it, not because it was rosé wine. But rosé is an extremely versatile wine that you can drink all year long. I mean, it's famous for drinking around a swimming pool in the summertime because you usually serve it nice and cold and relatively low alcohol. Usually it's 12% or something, as opposed to a big cab that could be 15.5 or something like that. So anyway, I thought, well, Joe, if we're going to be drinking wine at 2:30 in the afternoon,
rosé.
Let's try rosé.
And the really cool thing about rosé is I can pronounce it. Still has a price tag on it.
No, it doesn't.
On the glass.
No, I've been using this glass for years. I guarantee you it's been washed several hundred times.
All right, so this is a chilled rosé. What vineyard did this come from? Do you remember?
This almost certainly is from Provence, which is in France, French Riviera.
So we're drinking French wine.
Well, considering the fact that France,
well, I know
Spain, and Italy produce.
But usually on these Texas shows, they're drinking some kind of Texas wine. You know?
You can. I brought what I had available for us.
Yeah, you just like the little peekaboo thing where you see the girl.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Joe. That's the only reason I got this wine.
What's the brand? Can you find that at like HEB or is it like a?
Yeah, I got this at Market Street. You can probably get it at HEB. That's another reason that I brought something like this, because one of the things that were the marching orders when this newspaper asked me to start writing the column 16 years ago was write about wines that people can get.
Right.
So many times you read, stories about wine that's hundreds of dollars, or there's production of 200 cases, which means you're never going to get it.
So how much does this wine cost? Like $10?
Probably 15.
15.
The sweet spot in wine now is $15 to $25.
Okay.
You can still get some wine from 10 to 15, but for the most part,
$15.
$15, 14, $15 is the introductory. Other stuff's okay.
Right.
But if you wanted, something of some quality.
All right. So when you're tasting this stuff, you're supposed to swirl it around like that, make the glass.
Yeah, the easiest way to swirl your glass is to hold it down on the table and swirl it that way.
Oh yeah, look at that.
That makes it less likely that you're going to spill wine.
It's kind of like how you spin an Aggie ring. So.
Well, you would know.
All right. So once you've done that, you're looking for it to.
Well, first thing you do is what's called C. And you look at the wine. You say, okay, this is rosé. It's rosé because it was made from red grapes, probably Grenache. But they remove the skins shortly after pressing the grapes. So there's only a small influence of the skins, which is where the color, all the juice of all wines is clear. Mm-hmm. The color comes from exposure or staying on the skins and
the little membranes of the grapes.
The skin on the outside, yes. The components of wine are the juice, the skins, the seeds, and the stems.
All right.
in various ways. Those are all.
I'm bored with all that. Let's just drink.
Sure. I'm cool with that too.
All right, let's try it out.
Well, one of the things if you want to be sage on most rosé wines, you go, oh, I get a little strawberry and a little cherry.
I'm smelling a little wine.
I don't get plum, which we talked about last time we were here.
Yeah, plum.
Plum is a quite common descriptor for the red wines.
This has a little citrusy in it.
Yes.
Yes.
Then you.
It's got a kick. Woo, baby. It's got a kick. It's almost like a sparkling wine.
You can get rosé sparkling wines for sure.
Yeah.
And you can get rosés called frizzanti, that would be from northern Italy. Frizzante is some CO2, but not like
Not a whole lot. Right.
Not a whole lot, but it'll still be bubbles in there.
This is really good, though.
Well, actually, I know what I'm doing.
When you pick a wine, when Gus picks a wine, it's going to be pretty good. Do you ever review crappy wines and say they're good? Come on. You got to tell me you do.
No, I don't. I absolutely do not.
So do you have like this part of your wine cellar where you have just crappy wines that you would never touch again?
No, I give them away to people like you.
You go in there, hey man, this one's got 17% alcohol.
No, I tell, because the wineries contact me all the time, and I tell them, I say, if I don't like the wine, I'm not going to say bad things about it. Mm-hmm. Because my deal is, if you want snark, go watch Fox News or something like that.
Or MSNBC.
Well, I don't guarantee them that I'm going to review the wine.
If you really want snark, you could watch a Trump rally on YouTube.
I don't have enough time left in my life to waste on snark, is my feeling. I hope I have another 20, 30 years,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to waste it on beating people up.
All right, so Concho Country, this book. How did it come about that you became the author of this book? Did you get hired to do it, or did you do it as an entrepreneurial pursuit?
Entrepreneurial pursuit. I had been a senior editor of Star magazine in New York,
mm-hmm.
and
which is a tabloid, right?
Yes, Rupert Murdoch.
If you want to know why I write really good headlines, he taught me.
No, Rupert's first purchase in the United States was the San Antonio Express News.
Okay. Which was part of the old Houston Hart, and with Hart Hanks. Empire.
Oh, it was more than that. The Harts acknowledged that purchase saved that company. They were having, it was I mean, they eventually became more of a mail order house, and they still had Corpus, but Rupert flew in, bought the paper at the airport in San Antonio. And then he was a very hands-on owner.
Right.
I operated the desk, I was weekend desk person, which is somebody that controls back in those days, you control the paper. You laid it out, you made the decisions on which story was going to be the lead and who was going to edit this and that. And Rupert comes in and sits on the rim, which is where the workers are sitting around the person in the slot, which is where I was. And he told me, just count on me as an employee. And we worked together for a couple of days where I would hand Rupert AP story and say, mark it up and write a headline for me. A short time after that, he made me the sports editor of the paper. And then when he bought Village Voice and the New York Post and New York Magazine, a bunch of purchases in New York City, he made me an offer I couldn't refuse to come to New York and be a senior editor for him. Part of my job was to recruit Americans, because they didn't want a New York or a Boston accent up there. They wanted a Texas accent.
Ah, you say recruit Americans, meaning not New Yorkers.
Meaning all that was working there were Brits and Anzacs. He brought Australians and New Zealanders.
Oh, he brought us,
from his Adelaide paper.
All right, so fast forward.
Okay,
forward is... You get fired, right?
No, after...
You retired, what did you do?
After a year, my wife Cindy and I, we wanted to have children. And we were not going to raise children in New York City.
Who would? Who would? I mean, that place is impossible.
We lived on 2nd and 40th, and I have a whole bunch of New York stories, including being stalked by Son of Sam. Literally, it was in his book. He described this place where we were, the parking lot where I was with my cousins. Anyway,
y'all don't know who Son of Sam was. He was a mass murderer in New York, right?
Yeah, in the summer of '77. Yes.
So you were being stalked by this guy, and it scares you. So you want to leave?
No, I didn't figure that out. We didn't figure it out later when they apprehended him and began to publish this diary. We were looking at, holy cow! We could have been victim number 8. And
you need to write about that in your wine column.
So you
say this wine tastes like Son of Sam, and then you say, I remember when I was stalked by Son of Sam. And you could do that with all the crappy wines.
I don't write about crappy wines,
but you could.
After I tasted the first sip and it's crappy wine,
you're done.
I'm done. Once again, at my age, I don't need to spend time. I've got 400 bottles over there.
So you're in New York.
Okay, New York.
You need better schools.
Well, we always said we never regretted the year we spent in New York, and we never regretted coming back to Texas.
Gotcha.
So went back to Texas, never had sold the house that I owned, and began working on various projects with a friend. But in any event, I worked on a book called The San Antonio Story with T.R. Fehrenbach, a famous Texas writer.
That guy is one of the best Texas writers. I mean, if you read Lone Star by Fehrenbach, it reads like a Michener novel.
Exactly.
It's so good.
I mean, and fortunately, we developed a relationship that lasted till he recently died. I mean, Ted was a friend and a mentor.
Well, I believe the book is Lone Star. I'm pulling back in my memory.
No, it is.
I read that. I couldn't put that book down. It's T.R. Fehrenbach. Just look it up on Amazon. That book is phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, he even goes into high school football. He talks about the whole history. He starts with the Indians and, shamans, drawing cave pictographs all the way up to high school football.
Yeah. I mean, he was a fascinating man and a great, engaging writer.
A storyteller.
Yeah.
He was a storyteller.
He really wasn't a historian with footnotes and stuff like that.
Right.
He tells you the story.
Yeah, it was a more accurate James Michener. Michener would take like the Caribbean or the Caribbean and create a story based on a historical time frame and incorporate the characters who are actually there. The Fehrenbach's Lone Star is Texas history.
Well, and Michener credited Fehrenbach for working with him on it. I mean,
You know who else is like that is Shelby Foote and the Civil War series. He doesn't footnote anything. He just assumes if you're going to trust me to tell you this story, I'm telling you the truth. And you can look up Shelby Foote's.
Particularly if you watch the Civil War Ken Burns thing, he's the.
I heard that is no longer approved by the left wing media.
Oh Lord,
it's not woke enough anymore.
Calm down, Joe. Calm down. Anyway.
Yeah, Ken Burns on the Civil War series, which is phenomenal too. That's Shelby Foote is the narrator pretty much.
For a whole lot of it, yes. Yeah. So I worked on this book with Fehrenbach, and I really wasn't much of a writer. I was the photographer. And so I shot all these, because it was a coffee table book very heavy on photographs. Mm-hmm. And also doing research at the Institute of Texan Cultures to get historic photographs.
Right.
And I'll divert for a second. I did this research at Institute of Texas Cultures with a guy whose name is eluding me right this minute, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, he was the person that I worked with at the Institute of Texas Cultures.
And so what is this, like at the
30
University
years,
of Texas? Where is this place?
It's in Hemisphere. It's
in San Antonio?
It's UTSA is what it is. Okay. It is now. Mm-hmm. And it's, in any event.
It's kind of like the Texas version of the West Texas collection at ASU?
Well, it's all the different ethnic groups that made up Texas.
Ah, I see.
It was.
So it's got Germans. It's got
absolutely, and they have a folk life festival every summer with Czechs and Germans and Orientals and everybody else. Anyway,
did you just say Orientals? You can't. They're Asians. You can't say Orientals anymore.
Okay, well,
I have to correct the Senior Sage wine.
Well, I went off to the side here, but 30 years later, the Institute of Texas Cultures asked me to do a book using their photographs.
Okay.
And that guy remembered me and remembered all the pictures that we looked at. I mean, just somebody with just a phenomenal memory. And I would say something like, do we have anything about some subject in San Antonio? Mm-hmm. And he would go, yeah. And then we would go over, and there's over 1 million photographs in that collection.
This guy's kind of like the catalog guy in his brain, in his head.
Yes, and he was helpful then, and he became still was a friend. I think he may have retired by now. Anyway, to make a long story short, I did the book with Fehrenbach. I did 2 or 3 other short books with Marianne Noonan Guerra about San Antonio. So now, over a year period, I had done these 4 books in which I had various input.
Roles, right.
And I thought, I know how they funded San Antonio story. Fehrenbach wrote the front of it, and then there were stories about individual businesses in the back of it that I worked on. The ones I worked on were those.
So they had the individual businesses that want to have some type of longevity of their legacies, and they would pay. They would pay to put it in the back.
That's what happened with Concho Country.
Wait, you have businesses in the back? I need to look at.
Well, you're looking at a 3rd edition, and that was all about.
By the 3rd edition, you already made your money, and you're just.
No, by the 3rd edition, Ethicon, which had bought hundreds of books because they used to give it out to anybody that came to see them, came to me and said, we want some more books. And I said, I don't have any more books. I've sold all of them. But as you can see, in the first 2 editions, there were pages like that, which were...
So this is News Photo Preserves America's Memories, which News Photo's not even here anymore.
No.
Isn't that amazing?
Or Nathan Donsky not here anymore. Anyway,
Nathan Donsky now, if y'all don't know, that's the Nathan's Jewelers, which is down there at the corner of Tuig and Chadburn. That big gray building that's Martique's, and Martique's is now going out of business.
Oh.
So they're closing. They're not really going out of business. They're closing because they're retiring.
And then there's things like, there's nonprofits like the Day Nursery in here.
Where's the Day Nursery?
Oh, it's still around. It's just not called
the first edition is more valuable because that's part of history now too. That's interesting stuff. And it's not in the 3rd edition?
I've still got copies of the first 2 editions.
Do you? I might have to get a 1st edition. By the way, where to get Concho Country, you can get it from Googling his name, Gus Clemens on wine, or if you want to just page through it and go down to the Cactus bookstore. I always like to give Felton a little bit of it.
Yeah, I do too.
And you go down there, and he's got a couple of copies still left. Is that a print, right? You're not printing anymore?
Well, no, I don't think so. If I did it again, no. The next book's going to be about wine.
Well, one of the things in this book that's fascinating to me, all the stories pretty much are fascinating because we're from San Angelo. We want to know, why is, for example, why is it called Nasworthy Dam, right? And part of the deal is Nasworthy was a landowner who allowed the first oil well to be drilled on his land, right?
Sarge Nasworthy is who it was, and College Hills was his ranch.
So all of you living in College Hills, that used to be a ranch. And so you should feel a little bad about the environmental impact of you living there.
Well, the reason that there's a College Hills is because we built the North Concho Dam.
Okay. And when you say the North Concho Dam, what is that?
O.C. Fisher.
O.C. Fisher, okay.
Before O.C. Fisher was built in the mid-50s, that was floodplain. And where Holy Angels is now.
Holy Angels Catholic Church on 8 Elm Street.
There was a barn there. We lived on the edge of town on Nasworthy. I actually live on Nasworthy Street, which is just behind the college,
right.
Douglas Drive and stuff. Built by M.D. Bryant, by the way. It's called the Bryant Park Edition or something.
Right.
Most of the streets are named after his kids. Douglas was one of his kids.
Who was Hemlock? That's another street name there, Hemlock. Yeah. Must have been just Halloween when he was naming streets.
What the hell? So I've had people say, you've got this monster dam with no water behind it. What's the deal? But twice in my lifetime, we've had a hurricane hit Falfurus, Texas, and move up to us and fill that thing up. I remember as
1954, was that one of them?
58 or 57, something like that. Yeah. But I remember, because my dad and I used to
sail.
What about
the 1936 flood? Were you there for that?
No.
But that was part of the problem there, the 1936 flood.
The 1936 flood is what got the ball rolling to build North Concho Dam.
I see.
Because we'd had two floods.
And you can Google the 1936 flood in San Angelo and see pictures. I mean, the entire downtown is
underwater. Yeah. So I remember going out to, it was what's now O.C. Fisher. Back then it was North Concho because it impounds North Concho. And standing and having to walk backwards at a relatively quick pace because the water was rising so high. And if you go there and look against the dam, and particularly for the concrete thing where they open the dam up, you can see the watermark up there. I mean, it's 3 stories tall.
Right. And stories are important. When you talk about how a flooding thing, the way you say, hey, the 3-story building, 4-story building. For example, where I'm from, Mississippi Delta, the levees, they're saying, they started out being like 1-story levees, but then they decided to do this levee-only thing, and next thing you know, Mississippi's saying, I think I need 2 stories. Well, today it's probably about 8 stories.
8 stories.
Well,
so we've wandered far afield. I think you wanted to talk about.
Well, we were talking about Nasworthy I was reading your book, that Nasworthy had the first oil well in Tom Green County. And so I thought that was interesting because a lot of people don't know why the heck they named Lake Nasworthy.
Because it was on Nasworthy property. Lake Nasworthy was built for the power company. That's where
that's what the dam's for?
Yes. It was to get water. It's gone now.
Right.
But that's where San Angelo's electricity was made using Lake Nasworthy.
Now it's solar farms, right?
Now it's what?
Solar farms.
Sure.
No.
Particularly if you vote no on amendment number 7 or 3.
That's tomorrow. The vote. Yeah. The election no one cares
Vote
about.
against 3 and 7.
What's 3?
One of them is to tie legislatures' hands on ability to raise money, which is foolish. And the second one is to spend money only on gas powered electrical things and not to spend any of it on renewables. We need both. I mean, the deal is I'm not against gas powered, but
when you don't want to tie your hands on energy, even though probably renewables aren't going to be there for a while. But anyway, the interesting chapter in Concho County, I'm going to hold it up here, is chapter 10, and you titled this the I'm holding it sideways. The Permian Bonanza. Now, I want to start this off a little bit. One of the things that makes communities grow is entrepreneurial spirit. And there was certainly no lack of entrepreneurial spirit in San Angelo post World War I, and that's kind of when this setting is, where the Permian was basically discovered, so to speak. But there was this guy who gets done with the war. He graduates from war.
Let me clean this up for you.
Oh, you want to clean it up? All
Yeah.
right.
Okay. His name is Rupert Rickert.
Now, Rupert Rickert, he is my personal hero.
Well, Rupert,
But he got screwed over. Listen to
Rupert
this.
grew up in Big Lake,
Which is
Stiles.
60 miles southwest of here.
Correct. And he served in the First World War.
As a captain.
He also was a lawyer. And
Why would a lawyer go to Stiles, Texas?
because that's where he grew up. That was his hometown.
Okay. And so he lived with Mama.
He lived with his parents,
Okay.
which wouldn't have been unusual just after the
After
war.
World War I, yeah.
And he was looking around, and there was only 350 people in the county. So I mean,
You said 377 in your book.
Okay, well, whatever.
377 was the census.
Something.
And this is 1920-ish.
1919.
Okay.
I mean, immediately after
Immediately
the war.
after the war, okay.
And he realized that he could lay claim to 500,000 acres out there in Texas. Owned the land,
Right.
and he could for $350.
And the interesting thing is how you write this. All right.
Okay.
I got to quote a little bit. How you write this about the land, and I got to see if I can find it. But it says this was bleak near desert, where country where the Edwards Plateau, Llano Estacado, and the Trans-Pecos merged. It was land without softness. Its colors were brown, yellows, and reds, whitened with dust and sun. Virtually all of the land's living things possessed thorns or fangs or stingers or claws, testimony to the harshness of the fight for survival. So there's basically nothing out here you could do, and you could buy the land for pennies on the dollar.
But
And be broke. And be broke.
the trouble was, after he got the claim on the land, the second shoe fell, which was you had to pay rental on the land that you had
So
claimed.
he basically made this deal to cobble together a package of 500,000 acres.
Correct.
But I guess it's the precursor to the Railroad Commission said, oh, if you do this, you're going to have to pay rent on it.
10 cents an acre.
10 cents an acre. So he
He had to come up with $43,136.
in today's world, that's over $500,000.
A lot of money.
Yeah. So this guy today, imagine this guy today, has to come up with $500,000 to keep his investment going. Okay. So Rupert.
I mean, he'd only spent $350, but if he wanted to continue to have potential to use that land for some reason.
Well, he wanted to find oil.
Correct. Well, he ran into an old friend, Frank Pickerel, and his Frank Pickerel's friend, Hayman Krupp. Now, they weren't oil men. They were interested, but they were promoters. They knew how to raise money. Krupp, in particular, was a marketing guy. So they had money, and they knew how to raise money. And they formed something called the Texan Oil and Gas Company.
So Texan Oil and Gas. And now, if you're in the military, this is a little bit you don't know, and you fly in the military, out there on top of Big Lake and about 5 other counties, there's a thing called the Texan MOA.
Texan what?
Texan Military Operations
Okay.
Area. So it's in the air. It's like 7,000 feet and above. But that's where you can go do dogfights, practice dogfights and stuff. They call it the Texan MOA. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, there's also basically a ghost town now called Texan.
That's what I thought the MOA was named after. Now I find out it's a company.
Well, the town was named
After
the company.
Gotcha.
Well, it came time that he had to come up with the money or lose the stuff. And Pickerel and Krupp said, okay.
So basically, he had to pay this rent every year, and I guess in January.
Well, he had to pay it the first time. He didn't pay it once.
He didn't pay it once. So it was coming up due, and if he didn't pay it, then he would lose all those.
He would
rights.
lose his $350.
Gotcha.
So Krupp and Pickerel said, okay, we'll give you $2,500 for your $350 investment.
Plus all the pain of going in and researching who owns what land and stuff. I mean,
well, actually, I think most of that was just.
So $2,500 in today's money is probably about $25,000, $26,000, something like that.
And I mean, most of the land, maybe all of it, certainly was owned by the University. Was owned by Texas, and was dedicated to the University of Texas and A&M.
And today, well, it wasn't A&M back then. A&M had a sue to get on that deal. But that's part of the Permanent University Fund or PIF funds. Yeah.
So then they had to go raise the money.
But see, back then, no one had found oil anywhere near there. It was like just barren, just like you write in your beginning of the chapter on the Permian Bonanza. There's nothing out there. If you bought that land and tried to live off of it, you'd be broke.
Your cattle would die, then you would.
Yeah, so it's nothing out there. And there's no Midland, Odessa, I guess. I don't know where.
Yeah, there was a Midland and Odessa. I did a book about them also, as you know. But at that time, Midland was Midway, and it was named that because it was a
railroad
stop where they could put water in the steam engine.
And then some convicts escaped from the jail and they moved to Odessa, right?
I'm not going to go there.
I'm kidding, Odessa people. Yeah. I didn't mean to put you in Australia.
It was midway between Fort Worth and El Paso.
Okay.
That's the reason it was called Midway. And then they named it Odessa because they were trying to entice Russian immigrants
from Ukraine
to go live
That's
there.
why the women are so beautiful in Odessa. Anyway, that's a sidebar, Midland, Odessa. So they were there. They're little bitty towns, like probably just railroad depots.
Exactly.
Yeah. Big Lake probably was bigger than Midway.
No.
No? Okay,
no.
Never mind.
I mean, Midland at that time would have had a few thousand people because they did have some ranching and stuff, and for that matter, the railroad would have
they brought some people there.
Brought people
but
there.
The important thing is San Angelo is kind of like in the catbird seat of all this right now because we had a population center, we had water, and we had a population of about 10,000 at this point. 15,000.
We had a steady environment for 30, 40 years of being, which we still are today, the center of agribusiness.
Right.
Because we
had a more diversified economy, or we had a diversified agribusiness economy. We didn't have.
And we had two railroads.
Right.
And one of those railroads, which is now the Orient, the one that's still around, and it's the train station, the red brick train station.
Right.
Well, let's go back a little bit. Pickerel and Krupp needed to raise money.
These are the two they bought the rights to the 500,000 acres out in Big Lake from poor old Rupert Rickard.
Right.
For today's money, $25,000. And so now they're going to go promote and resell this thing to a bunch of rich people.
Well, actually, it was $25,000 in
today's money.
No, $25,000 in the money back in 19.
No, it was $2,500.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's $25,000.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
So basically, I'm sorry, it was $2,500 back in 1921 or whenever it was.
Right.
And that's worth $25,000 today. So the guy did all that work, gets paid $25,000 basically.
He got out from underneath. He
didn't have to pay rent.
He wouldn't have anything if they didn't buy it from him.
I understand, but I just kind of feel like old poor Rupert got the short end of the stick. But anyway, let's keep going.
Okay, so they went to New York, up east, and were trying to sell interests in the Texan Oil and Gas Company, and they entertained some Catholic women, and the Catholic women were interested in, why not? I've got some extra money. Let me take a flyer on Texas Oil and Gas.
Mm-hmm.
But they were unsure, so they went to their Catholic priest and said, we're thinking about doing this. What should we do?
And you just hear them saying they're probably nice. These are two nice young men. You imagine them
I'm
saying
sure.
that.
Yeah, they seem sincere.
Yeah.
And the Catholic priest said, well, if you want to do this, I would pray to Saint Rita. And why Saint Rita? Because she's the patron saint of hopeless causes.
So the priest was not believing that this is going to turn out.
Well, he was saying,
well.
you want to do this, but if you wanted something, if you want to pray to something to help you out here,
Right.
Saint Rita is the person, because the story goes that it's the middle of winter and there's a rose that grows in the middle of winter that she's noted for. So if you see iconic depictions of Saint Rita, she's always carrying a rose.
Okay.
And the Catholic nuns found a rose, put it in an envelope, and
Put the petals in the envelope.
put the rose in the envelope.
Whole rose?
Well, the petals, what?
Okay. So it's flat.
I don't know. And nobody knows.
It was a flat envelope.
It was rose petals.
Okay.
Jeez. Sort of like this. The rose petals were about the same color as this glass of wine.
Rose wine.
Rose wine.
There's the rose petals. All
Rose
right.
story. So they said, okay, took their money, and came back to...
And the rose petals, too.
Yeah. The rule was you had to start drilling by, I think it was, that's when it came in. You had to start drilling by a certain date.
Mm-hmm. For the investment to remain whole.
No, if you didn't, the Texas would take the land back.
Ah.
This was to secure, in other words...
if you promise you're going to drill, you better drill.
You got to drill by this date.
Right.
And they convinced the KCMO people at that red brick train station.
Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah, it was a thing supposed to go from Kansas City to Topolobampo, Mexico.
Yeah. The conductor of the train.
Yeah, whoever was in charge.
Because the tracks go right down there by it. So
yeah,
in Big Lake. All right.
Oh, that's the whole point of the story.
I know. I'm just trying to fill in the blanks. I mean,
so they held the train up for like 8 hours while they put drilling equipment on a flatbed, and then they went down the tracks till they get to not the Big Lake, to what was then eventually become Texon,
mm-hmm.
but very near Big Lake, yes. Mm-hmm. And they stopped it. They dumped the drilling equipment literally off of the flat car as
the sun was setting.
As the sun was setting,
right? And
decided we can't go to where the geologist said we were supposed to drill. We're going to drill actually on the other side of the railroad track, because that's the easiest. That's the easiest thing for us to get.
We're going to have to transport all this equipment a mile and a half by wagon. Yeah.
So they and then they started drilling a water well, because it didn't matter that.
The rules. You just had to drill. They didn't say what you had
to
drill for.
If you're doing cable tools, you had to drill a water well. Well, you still have to do that today. You should do fracking. So, but anyway, all you had to do is make hole. That's mm-hmm. what they.
Yeah.
And they did that just before midnight,
mm-hmm.
and had people sign. Okay, we saw them. There was a plunger hitting the dirt.
Yeah, drilling. Yeah.
at 11:55 or whatever. Well, then they drilled for 2 years.
Yeah, and they keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And they use this old equipment they bought in Ranger, Texas, because the Ranger oil field was going dry, I guess. So they went and got it on the cheap. They got it for $5,000, which in today's dollars would be what?
50,000?
50,000 bucks.
According to your 10 times formula?
My 10 times formula, yeah. So those ladies from,
Catholic
ladies from New York, they're paying, they're running out of money.
Well, eventually, Pickerel and Krupp decided, well, let's go climb up the wooden derrick and crumple the roses and named this well Santa Rita number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if this were a novel, the next day
it's going to blow up.
It actually took another year,
right?
But they kept going.
They kept going deeper and deeper, and they'd
3,000 feet,
and they would run out of money, and they'd stop, and then they go raise some more money and keep going. And it seemed like at the end they were like getting pretty desperate.
Well, they were below 3,000 feet, which is fairly deep well for a cable tool, because all you do is just pound on the dirt and then pull the dirt out and pound on it some more. I mean, it's the same way people have been digging wells for 8,000 years, not like a rotary drilling today. Well, on January 8th, 1921, the earth began to rumble, and shows of oil came up. And everybody in San Angelo was excited, and they all loaded up on a train. A few days later, I think 3 or 4 days later, they took the train out to the well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a great picture in there of what happened. They got to the, well, maybe there's not.
There's not. It's probably in the first edition.
It's probably in any event, here's San Angelo's leaders, and the oil well comes in with a gusher, shooting it, 200 feet of oil up in the air.
And the thing is, San Angelo was poised to take advantage of that kind of economic miracle that would happen way out there in Reagan County.
I mean, we were the even though we were just 15,000 people, that's 13,000 more than anybody else.
But you had infrastructure, and you had schools
and banks.
But the one thing they didn't have was office space. All these people, all these speculators came out here and didn't have enough office space or hotels to stay in.
Well, that's the reason San Angelo's skyline today is a direct result of the 1920s, early 30s Santa Rita oil boom.
You could look at a picture today that was taken back in the, I guess, mid-century. There's oil derricks everywhere in Reagan County, and it's just numerous. And to put this into perspective, today, we talk about the rig counts. Like nationwide, there might be 500 rigs active. Today, back then, there was 500 rigs in Reagan County.
In Reagan County, yeah. Now they hadn't figured out spacing and stuff like that.
Right.
If you could claim to
that
little bit of space, you could drill it.
Right.
Well, the San Angelo that we know today is a direct result of Santa Rita.
We had some things that happened. They had the Cactus Hotel.
Second or the third Hilton Hotel.
Right.
But the first Hilton Hotel that was built by Hilton.
Right.
The other hotels were ones he bought, and
he didn't technically build it. It was a lumber company that built it, but
the other ones were existing hotels, and he buys them.
Yeah.
This is
one he built.
This is what I want.
He made the deal to build.
Yeah, I want you to build a hotel here.
And the other interesting thing, like the McBurnett building, which is a catty corner across from the Wells Fargo building, that big 10-story building. Had a lot of office space then, because you couldn't get office space right after that happened. People were rushing to San Angelo to work the oil field, and they couldn't find a place to.
That's the reason they built that building. Yeah. As I've mentioned earlier, that's when we first moved here. That's where my dad's office was.
There was a hotel where the Wells Fargo building was.
The St. Angelo's Hotel.
Right.
Like 3 or 4 story hotel with. We used to go eat there after Mass at Sacred Heart. And
then of course the neighborhood, the Santa Rita neighborhood.
Well, as a result of the population boom, and San Angelo basically probably doubled in size during this period of time.
So it went from 15,000 to
more than 30,000.
Right.
And they built a bridge across the Concho River, which is Beauregard Bridge today.
Right.
And they built a new subdivision, Santa Rita. Which is also
just on the other side of the Beauregard Bridge.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean,
which is why some people were upset. I remember this at city council meetings. So the first thing you see when you're going west over Beauregard Bridge now is a storage place. They're like the last piece of property there, and it's a storage place. But anyway, it's a nice storage place.
And if you go just next to it is a really nice house.
Right.
And then a bunch of other really nice houses.
And they're all, the backyards go up to the Contra River on Park Street.
Exactly. And then you also, that's the reason that Santa Rita neighborhood is a mixed neighborhood. They didn't just, there's a whole bunch of really nice houses in Santa Rita, but there's also a whole bunch of, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, little houses for regular people. So just as the North Concho Dam begat College Hills,
right,
the Santa Rita oil boom begat West San Angelo. I mean, the town ended at the river.
Right. Up until Santa Rita.
Up until Santa Rita. And the various things in San Angelo, you can almost always trace them back to some other event that this domino fell, and then all the other dominoes.
Right.
All the other dominoes.
Well,
fell.
the Santa Rita story and how much money. I mean, that thing was. I mean, that wasn't it. I mean, we had 500 oil wells out there in Reagan County, and a lot of those people were working or living in San Angelo or moved to San Angelo. That was a gigantic boom for us. And then, if you follow the history of the Cactus Hotel, I've written a book. I wrote an article about it. Not a book. I'm not a book writer, but
it's not easy.
Poor Conrad Hilton. I mean, at about 1930, he builds the thing just in time for the stock market crash of '28, and then we go into the Depression. And by 1930, he's begging the Moody's out of Galveston to partner with him, so he has the money to operate his hotel. And of course, they had a falling out. So all throughout the 30s, you pretty much had nothing. Everything stopped. I mean, the Roosevelt Hotel. When you look at the Roosevelt Hotel, that was built right back then. Another interesting thing is Sealy Flats. The old colonial building that's now a bread and breakfast. That thing was built to be a palatial place for people to stay. I guess a boarding house. It never got to be that. It became basically a flop house for winos. During the Depression. And it never lived up to its promise of what it was to be. So you had this boom-bust cycle right there at the 20s going into the 30s.
There's some, correct. There's some ameliorating circumstances for San Angelo. And like I said, I've obviously wrote a book about San Angelo, then another book, a legacy about Midland, Odessa, and the Permian Basin. Midland and Odessa live and die by the oil business.
Right.
San Angelo's always had a floor of agribusiness and the air base and
the college.
And the college. So we don't crash.
Right.
We don't soar like Midland, Odessa when things are hot.
But we
don't crash. I mean, I can tell you a quick story about Midland. I was hired after I finished Concho Country. Somebody in Midland read it and said, you
want a Midway Country.
Yeah.
I'm going to start calling it Midway now.
They said, can you do that book about Midland? And I said, well, I'll do a book about Midland and the Permian Basin, because even Concho Country, I didn't call it San Angelo because I wanted it to be a bigger picture.
Yeah. Because the Permian Basin goes all the way to New Mexico.
Oh, easily into eastern New Mexico.
Yeah.
So when they hired me to do the book, and I told them, I said, these things are, Concho Country took me 2 years, and that's all I did for 2 years was write that book. I said, this is going to be a 2-year project, you just don't snap your fingers and you have a book. It'd be easier now with the internet. I wouldn't have to spend so many hours at University of Texas or at Texas Library with white gloves on paging through stuff. But anyway, they said, oh, it doesn't matter. Just, we're going to give you a duplex. You can have your office on, it's a brand new duplex. You can have your office on one side and you raise your family on the other, and just report every once in a while and tell us how you do it. So, I mean, that
was a good deal.
That was a really good deal. By the time that the book was ready to be published, the bank that was funding the project suffered the largest independent bank failure in United States history.
Because we were obviously in a oil
Down,
boom, or oil bust. Yes.
And I remember.
Did you ever finish the book?
Oh yeah, it sold 5,000 copies too. But I remember, and this is some people in Midland, Odessa maybe will salvage some of your disparaging things from earlier in this meeting.
You mean calling it Midway?
Yeah. So my project, which was in galley proofs, means that's the end. All I need to do is give the printer, News Photo, by the way, give the printer money, and they turn the press on.
And you're using News Photo, which was
right.
Yeah, which was one of your advertisers for Concho Country.
Yeah, and somebody I grew up with.
Right.
So I'm in this office with a whole bunch of other people, and there were guys with these big, long, tall maps of all their oil and gas stuff, and with sweat pouring off of their faces. Because this was FDIC going,
oh yeah,
we own you now,
right?
And so I come in and I go, here's this book that I've done that the bank funded, but now it's ready to be printed and there's no money. And sometimes going to Mass every Sunday pays off, like you are now. It's good to see you there on 11 o'clock. The guy said, that's interesting. My father has written books like this. And I said, okay. And I said, and by the way, all the agreements for use of the pictures in this book were predicated on it being a nonprofit thing, that any money that was made would be going to certain things. The bank wasn't trying to make money off this book.
Right.
So this is either worthless or you let me just have it. Well, I didn't have the money to do that. Well, I eventually did raise the money to do it, but I had to raise it as nonprofit also because I couldn't violate I had a whole lot of pictures from all over the country that were related to this is not going to be a for-profit project.
You would have to then license everything, and probably the profit would go away anyway.
Correct. I would have to go pay rights on all the pictures, and a number of them probably wouldn't even sell me the rights. Anyway, so they said, just go find a nonprofit that will back the book. And so I had worked with J. Evans Haley, who's another writer, but is in Midland and has a museum in Midland. I went to see them because they knew what the project was about. I used a bunch of pictures from the Haley Library. And I said, if you all will just endorse this thing and take control of it after it's done, I've got the money to print the thing. It's not going to cost you anything, but I've got to have you as the
overriding sponsor.
Right. And they said, well, let me talk to Evans about it, J. Evans Haley. And so they called me and say, well, Evans ready to see you. He just came in. And I go see him, and he had been working cattle, and this is a guy that's 70 years old or something,
right?
And had broken 2 ribs,
right?
And he said, I know about your project, and I've got 2 ribs, and I'm not feeling that good, but I wasn't going to let you down. So we cut the deal with Evans Haley having his ribs.
And so when was the Midland book published?
83, I think, 84.
Okay, so it happened before this one.
No, after this one.
After this one?
This one is the reason the bank contacted me to write their book.
Ah, gosh. So really this one goes through 1980, 81.
81, I think.
81 is when it's done. Anyway, it's Concho Country. You can get, this is the 3rd edition. See the little gold letters on it. And this is the 1st edition. It's now a collector's item that you can get for Christmas, I guess. This one doesn't even have the words on it. It's a blank book.
Yeah, no, it does.
Okay, it's on the back.
On the back. Well, that's because it had paper.
The first edition has advertorials from business.
First and second edition.
First and second, and the third edition is just straight up Ethicon.
What happened was one of my Elmer Kelton was a mentor of mine and a friend.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't know who Elmer Kelton was, he was a Western writer who lived in San Angelo. Shane Kelton is his grandson, who works at the city.
Yeah.
In charge of all the streets. Anyway.
Well, when I was working on the Concho Country book, Elmer, like I said, was an inspiration.
But you know, Elmer inspired a lot of people. I mean, you talk to Felton at the Cactus Bookshop where you can get these books. He built that whole book around Elmer, a whole bookstore around
Elmer Kelton.
Elmer Kelton, yeah.
Well, I eventually got to publish an Elmer Kelton book, which was with Fort Concho. I went and talked to Elmer and I said, "Do you have all your earliest pulp fictions?"
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Yeah, I do. I saved them. There's this box over here."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Can I publish a book of your, first 20 pulp fiction stories?"
Right.
And we did. And I took the title from the first story he ever sold, and it was called "There's Always Another Chance." And I always thought, here it is 50 years later.
Yeah, there's always another chance for that thing.
Here comes your book. Anyway, what Elmer said was, "Gus, here's what you should do. You should take a couple of boxes of your first edition and you should put it back in the closet and forget about them for 25 years.
And so that's what you've done.
That's what I did.
So if you want the first edition, Google Gus Clemens on wine, and there's probably 50,000 ways to get a hold of you that way, right?
Well, I would click on the first couple of ones.
The first couple of ones, the real ones. Or just find them on Facebook. You can find Gus Clemens on wine on Facebook. You have
Facebook.
a page.
Yeah, yeah.
But Gus,
12,000 people follow it.
We've gone really long, but we always go long with Gus Clemens because he's so interesting. And I know there's a lot of people who like to know about history and why we have buildings that are built the way they are and why we have neighborhoods there. And the Santa Rita #1 is a very pinnacle moment in San Angelo history that happened in the 1920s.
It made, since it was on university lands, it made the University of Texas the second largest endowed university in the world, only behind Harvard. I mean, the Texas.
And that oil, unlike Harvard today, their endowment people are all rising up, about politics. Oil doesn't care.
Right. You sold that for $100?
Oil doesn't care, so they can do whatever the heck they want to at the University of Texas. And then Texas A&M sued
and got a part of it.
And today, because of a legal action, Texas A&M gets a third of it. University of Texas gets 2/3 of it. Senator Charles Perry has tried to, bogart some of that for Texas Tech system, but it wasn't successful.
That's not going to work.
If you talk to anyone, it doesn't really matter. Texas Tech, Texas A&M, UT system are all going to get funded. Where the money comes from, it's going to come. But anyway, that's a little bit about the Permanent University Fund and oil and Santa Rita. And why the buildings downtown are such. We need another boom like that today in San Angelo. So
I'm not sure about that.
We need to remake that skyline, but I think we need to get it.
I can tell you back in the 50s, city fathers vehemently opposed the interstate coming through San Angelo because they did not want.
Oh no! You're going to feed all kinds of Facebook myths about how the good old boys don't want San Angelo to grow. But anyway, we're going to get into more San Angelo history next month when we have Gus Clemens on wine on the San Angelo Live podcast and live daily news show. Gus, thanks for coming on today.
I always enjoy it.
We'll go back to the studio now
and finish drinking wine.
When it comes to unique pieces you can't find anywhere else, Kano's Diamonds and Coins is your one-stop shop. With over 24 years in the diamond and coin industry, Kano's Diamonds and Coins is West Texas's choice for diamonds, jewelry, coins, silver, and gold. Owner Bill Kano stands by his work and offers free consultations, including estate jewelry. Don't just trust anyone with your valuables. Come see the staff at Kano's at 1016 West Beauregard in San Angelo.
I'm Joe Hyde, and this has been the Thursday edition of the Live Daily News. We're broadcasted via live stream on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and all the live streams, and also our website, sanangelolive.com, in the 4 o'clock hour. Sometimes we're a little bit late, especially when we have long interviews like we did with Gus Clemens, but I hope you enjoyed it. We're also available on all the podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Amazon. You name it, we're there. This for everyone here at San Angelo Live. I'm Joe Hyde. Thank you for watching.